Hey guys, Noel here, and it is Friday, and I thought it would be fun for us to do a political analysis video for the YouTube channel. In all honesty, since 2016, I felt the mass media was in a state of antagonistic hysterics. Not all the time, but too much of the time for my taste. So I really wanted to mellow on the politics videos for my YouTube channel. Plus, I'm also a full time teacher, and I didn't want to say anything that might offend a person. Not that you should be afraid of speaking your mind out of a fear of offending someone, but at the same time, you do want to be sensitive to other perspectives. So I'm just going to try to give my opinion on a political candidate that is on the back of my car, Bernie Sanders. Right, I got that Bernie bumper sticker right on the back. Because I do like Bernie Sanders for, I would say, about 95% of his political positions. And I just wanted to give a little bit of my loose insights as to why he's probably not going to win his 2020 presidential bid. So, keep in mind again, Mark Twain once said that if you don't watch the news, you are uninformed. If you watch it, you're misinformed. So, I try to stay away from 24-hour news. I try to be aware of what's going on through just, try to get the headline, get the facts, and then get the heck out of there because so much of media analysis is designed to compound fears and push agendas rather than inform people. That's not me telling you not to watch the news. It's just, be very wary of 24-hour news, its agendas, and its biases. So that's just a little bit of my background on, I guess, where I'm kind of pulling my information from. I'm just trying to share what I know based on the information that I have. So back in 2016, when Bernie Sanders was running for president, I was a full-time college student in Binghamton, New York, which is a place that is pretty economically depressed. And it is kind of a tale of two cities where you have the college campus, which is filled with a lot of ivory tower, tunnel vision, that is very much into identity politics and tribal academic philosophy. And then you have the rest of the city, which is the lumpen proletariat, basically the unemployed working class or the working class that they don't have like economic stability. They're just doing whatever they can to get by. And I used to spend a lot of my time at a local diner while I would wait for my bus, and it had a lot of those lumpen proletarian people in it. And Bernie Sanders was like the one person in that 2016 presidential race that really seemed to excite both the tunnel vision students at SUNY Binghamton and the working class and sub-working class people. And that was something very rare. And he had a lot of momentum, and he was running against, I think, a very weak and corrupt candidate in Hillary Clinton. But the Democratic Party used all of its resources, I would argue, to really put Bernie at a disadvantage. And that's not the only reason that Bernie lost in 2016. I think Bernie also lost because, and I'm not trying to be insensitive about this, but I do think that people in big cities on both ends of the economic spectrum tend not to like Bernie Sanders. If you're rich, his socialistic agenda is going to hurt your economic interest. If you're very poor and live in African American communities, you're probably used to voting in a party bloc that represents your interests. And I would argue not 100%, but there's probably got a lot to do with the role the Republican Party had in the Reconstruction South, where it was like, okay, the Republican Party is going to be the party that's going to take care of you, so just vote for that party. And over time, I think African American, communities have just gotten used to voting for the party establishment. And since Bernie was an outside party establishment guy, that didn't help. And it's kind of sad because Bernie Sanders worked very hard for civil rights activism during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. He's a guy who has been, I think, consistent with his political and racial philosophies, even if in terms of some of his political philosophies, I mean, I personally don't agree with his abortion position, but it's something that he's at least, I would argue, consistent on. So Bernie comes off as an honest person who, he and Trump both bubbled up out of, I think, a legitimate sense of dissatisfaction with a corrupt political media and economic culture that acted with impunity. Trump was doing it, I think, more as a tool of self-promotion, and because he had the money to promote himself, and because he's not stupid, despite what people will say. He's not playing 4D chess, but he's a smart enough guy to realize the cracks in the system. And it's not that, like, anyone can see it. Like, the taxi driver down the street that I talk to sees the cracks in the system, the same as Donald Trump does. And Donald Trump was able to exploit those weaknesses and bully the bullies of that system. And the Republican Party allowed him to be their candidate. Bernie didn't so much bully the bullies, but really tried to stir up student and working class voters to try to make kind of a velvet revolution happen within the framework of social democracy, and was honest enough to call it socialism, and he was able to get a lot of traction. Well, what ended up happening was Hillary Clinton ended up being the candidate because black voters, urban voters, and the Democratic Party all kind of came together for various reasons and basically cut the knees out of Bernie Sanders' campaign. And so Hillary Clinton ran against Donald Trump, and she lost for reasons that we all know, and I'm not going to talk about in this video. So 2020 rolls around, and Bernie never really had that same lightning in a bottle that he had. Donald Trump's presidency, despite the media hysteria and a lot of the fear-mongering from, minority, groups or people that were really afraid of Donald Trump, I think, because of media coverage, or they just don't like Donald Trump because he reminds them of, like, the high school bully that they thought would be a loser, and now he's running the country, and that makes him feel like, he's running your life kind of thing. Outside of a lot of, like, negative emotional aspects of people's thinking and feelings, life under Donald Trump has really not been bad. In fact, I mean, we've got the coronavirus tanking the stock market now, but, like, pretty much everyone I know is doing economically better under Donald Trump than they were during the Obama administration. I don't know if that's just economic cycles and Trump's just come across at the right place at the right time, or if Trump's economic deregulations are having short-term gains that could have long-term losses, or things are just better under Donald Trump because of his policies. Maybe it's a little bit of all of those things. But, life under Donald Trump is gotten, I would say, everyone's standard of living has either maintained or increased from what I've seen, at least in my own little part of the world. So running against Trump is going to be difficult because Trump can use that argument of, like, hey, is your life a little better than it was 4 years ago? Probably. You're welcome, So it's hard to kind of run against that. And there's also the fact that, Donald Trump does still have that populist appeal of, I'm the guy that bullies the bullies. I understand that he's hypocritical. I understand that he's a self-promoter. I understand that he is likely disingenuous with some of his populism. But I think that Donald Trump rewards the people that he likes on all rungs of the economic and social ladder and punishes the people that he dislikes on all rungs of the social and economic ladder. And that's just, what Donald Trump does. And I do think that Donald Trump has been, misquoted in the mass media. So anyway, what does this have to do with Bernie Sanders? I'm just trying to say, like, running against Trump is not going to be as easy as running against an establishment candidate, because Trump still has a little bit of that anti-establishment aura. Whether that's genuine or not, we can talk about it in another video. So it's not like Bernie Sanders rolls up on this whirlwind of momentum and he's hitting against this monolithic institution that's never been shaken before, like in 2016, where it was like people were just so sick of, like, establishment candidate after establishment candidate after establishment candidate. Now you've got an anti-establishment rogue member of the bourgeoisie in Donald Trump, and things are okay, and Bernie Sanders is running up against someone who is no longer the official establishment. Bernie Sanders' big problem, I would say, is that he cut in the direction away from the lumpen proletariat, away from the working class, away from the average voter that could either be sympathetic to him or Trump. Trump is not stupid when he reaches out to Bernie Sanders voters. He knows exactly what he's doing when he says, like, hey, Bernie's really getting screwed in these primaries. That's because he knows that there are dissatisfied voters, and it's not just that they're undecided voters. They're people that see the problems in the establishment. He's smart enough to realize that he and Bernie are the anti-establishment candidates, and Bernie voters can swing toward Trump, and if they're stuck with the choice of, the party you don't like, versus someone who's going to attack the system, at least rhetorically, and pretend to stand for something, when the Democrats are increasingly standing for identity politics and the amorphous contours of cosmopolitan academic culture. So Bernie Sanders' lack of ability to, I think, really cater to the, average Joe, working class, and really, when talking to African American voters, not just scream about how much Trump is a racist, but scream about how much he can do for them, right? So your life is worse or better in this situation. Here's who I can reduce making it worse and increase making it better. And forget about Trump being a racist, because that's just, a more fear-mongering that didn't work for Hillary Clinton and it's not going to work for you. The other problem that Bernie Sanders has is that, not that Joe Biden is any strong candidate, but Joe Biden is a more likable candidate than Hillary Clinton. So that's not hard to do, but Joe Biden, even though he is lockstep position with pretty much all of the policies of the Democratic Party that got Donald Trump elected, he comes off as being more relatable, despite the fact that, at least from what I'm seeing, he is either suffering from exhaustion or increasing confusion, or maybe, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but like whatever he's got in terms of that facelift or Botox or whatever, like his speech is starting to get a little more slurred. So that's, I don't know how that's going to play out in the general election, but Bernie's running up against a candidate that is got a little bit more working class appeal. And if Bernie has neglected the white average working class and black voters that he's got to try to get to come over to his side, it's going to be a lot easier for them to go to Joe Biden, because it's like, oh, this guy is fairly likable and he's the devil we know, and we definitely want to beat Trump. And Bernie just comes off as, unappealing, because he's increasingly embracing this college professor persona. And now Bernie is where he is. So it's a combination of timing, and I think it's a combination of strategic mistakes that's led to Bernie, I think, unfortunately, losing his shot at being president, which is sad, because what I think we really need to see as a country is a good, honest conversation and honest debate between what are probably the two most interesting candidates of the early 21st century, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. One nominal socialist, one populist oligarch, who have a similar appeal, and you could really have them sit down and talk about their strengths and challenge each other's weaknesses. But instead, we're probably just going to get a repeat of the 2016 election, where Donald Trump is just running up against the same nauseating policies of the Democratic Party that everyone is sick of, with a more likable yet confused face as their presidential candidate. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, my name is Noel. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I just wanted to share my thoughts and inform people. And like and subscribe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.